Today I wanted to talk about exterior world lighting. Now, before we've talked about how to light a studio setup scene, but lighting works a little bit differently when we're in a world environment. And one of the main reasons for that is because in a world environment, you have a lot less control of where light's coming into your scene, what reflections you have in your scene, because you have trees, you have mountains, you have tons of things everywhere. So I wanted to go through three lighting methods that you might use in your projects to get good results. The first one is to just use sun lamp. I'm on my right hand window over here just so I can navigate while keeping an eye on my window here. So if I come over to light and look for the sunlight, you can see basically what it does is it just dictates the direction the light's coming from. And so I can move this around and choose the angle I want it to follow. And then I can also increase the strength to what I want. You will notice that there are some fairly big issues with this. One of those issues is we have a completely gray background. That's because this sun lamp isn't affecting the background of our scene. It's not actually putting a sky in our scene. It's just creating a light source. So a lot of times when people use this method, they will add like an image background in order to give kind of a sky scene. And usually that sky image is so far back that it's not really interacting with the light. And so it looks pretty realistic. So that's a sun lamp option. We have another way to introduce light into our scene, and that's by using what's called an HDRI. So we can find HDRIs at Polyhaven. You can also find them in the Blender Kit add-on, but I'm going to find one here. So if I come to Assets and look for HDRIs, I can look for an image that closely matches the environment I'm trying to render. So I'll kind of choose this Golden Gate Hills environment. So I'll click Download, but you will notice that there are a lot of different options. So we have nighttime scenes, we have indoor scenes, so you really can simulate a lot of different types of environments. And so if you go this route, I would spend time to find the exact lighting you're going for, and that will improve your scene a lot. But I downloaded this kind of Golden Gate Hills image, so I'm going to come back to Blender. Then if I come over to the shader editor and switch from object to world, you see these two nodes appear. If they're not here, they're probably just off screen a bit. So if you click A, so if they're off screen, you can click A and then period on the number pad. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add what's called an environment texture. And I'm going to plug that texture into the color of my background. Now you see everything goes pink. Pink in Blender means that there's a file missing, which makes sense because we haven't actually uploaded our HDRI yet. So I'm going to click open. I'm going to look for that. Here we go. And when I open that, you see I get the lighting of that image, but as opposed to the sun lamp that I have the sky background, I have some clouds, and it's looking pretty nice. Again, one of the main benefits of this is really getting that sky background that you don't have to add in later. However, there is a drawback with this method as well. Because we're using an image source to dictate the lighting of our scene, there's not too much we can do to control it. The extent to which we can control it is by rotating the scene around. You can do that if you click on your HDRI and click Control T with Node Wrangler enabled. And then I can kind of rotate my sky around if I want a different background, for instance. But you'll also see that the light kind of points in different directions based on where the HDRI is rotated. And that's because there's a sun in this image and the sun is creating a certain amount of light. Now, the last lighting setup I wanted to talk about is called a sky texture. And so if I delete this guy real quick, then I click Shift A and search for sky texture. We can connect the sky texture to the background. You see we get this really bright environment. So I'm going to just start by bringing the intensity down, something like this. You can also change the strength of the background to wherever you want. But as opposed to the HDRI, you see we have a lot more control over how the sky and environment and atmosphere is acting. So for instance, I can rotate the sun around so that you see this tree, as I rotate the sun around, the shadow cast by the tree is going to act differently. You can also change the sun elevation, and so this is basically how high the sun is in the sky. So if I bring low, you see we start to get kind of a sunset look. See, as we rotate the sun around, we can dictate exactly where it is in the sky, but we can also change the altitude of where the scene is. And basically what that does is at different altitudes, the air is more or less condensed, and so the light travels through it in different ways. So for instance, if we bring the altitude to like 1500, you see the light quality is a little bit more blue than if we bring it down to 0. Just to exaggerate this, if we bring this up to 4000, you see it's pretty blue, but then if we bring it down to 0, everything's a lot more yellow. And that's just the difference in how the light travels through the air. We can also increase the air function, dust, so if we want to introduce some amount of pollution or anything. Also ozone. See, as we bring these up, it makes it harder and harder for the light to actually travel through the air. And so I might bring up the strength, maybe the sun intensity as well. But ultimately, you see the main benefit of the sky texture is that you have quite a bit of control of the light source and how it actually interacts with your scene. The main drawback with this method is you see that although we have a sky in the background, we don't really have a lot of control over clouds or the quality of that background. And so that's one of the main benefits of the HDRI, is that although you don't have control over what's actually in the HDRI, you do have a certain amount of realism with the background, in that you have clouds and different variations of that blue texture that make it a little bit more realistic. So that's all I have for you guys. I just wanted to go through those 3 main lighting techniques and setups. There are obviously pros and cons to both, but it's just going to take a certain amount of experimentation with you guys in order to figure out what's best for your individual projects. Excited to see what you make. Thanks guys. Talk to you later.